Don't mess with me. You know I had to take my shoes off to count to 2. All right? That's just not fair.
Yeah, but 6 is your favorite number.
All right, there goes the family-friendly rating right out the bat, and Mark didn't even get to do it. So, hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans, it's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just 3 nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies, a place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. So without further ado, we're going to introduce you to our guest. You might have heard him somewhere before. His name is Mark Wandrey. So, Mark, can you tell the people living under rocks who might not know who you are?
Mark Wandrey, Mark H. Wandrey. I've been an author since I was about 7 years old. It took me about 40 years to figure out how to actually do it for a living. And I started my career by publishing a space opera series called the Earth Song series. And did it to great acclaim. I think my biggest royalty check at that point was enough to buy a Happy Meal. But eventually I discovered military science fiction and went in that direction and worked with Chris Kennedy, and my career took off, and I decided to quit my day job and be a full-time author just about exactly 3 years ago now.
All right. That sounds like a plan. And let me see if I can get this over here. While you tell us about the next part. See, this is what you get for messing me up, Doc. She's trying to tell me we have a better version of the cover with more pixels and stuff. This is where I smile and nod and pretend I know what any of that means. But now we get to talk about how we first found them. So, Doc, how did you first find Mark Wandrey?
I got dragged over at a party and said, "This is Mark Wandrey," and I went, "Okay." No,
hey, baby.
What? It was LibertyCon, and I think actually we were in the con suite. I was serving booze during the celebrations shindig that we did after the opening ceremonies or something. And this is Mark Wandrey. He writes for Horsemen universe, and I went, "Hi, what's your drink?" So plying people with booze. They ply me with books. It's only fair. We exchange bees.
Okay.
That doesn't.
It did, but I wasn't going to say anything because I'm a good boy.
I was up at 5 this morning.
You get an excuse, and you just came back from a little shindig or something with a couple thousand people, way bigger than
No.
Atlanta.
It had 250 people, and is why I sound like Hannah Montana right now.
Does that mean you're going to break out in song?
Not any that's repeatable.
Is that a wrecking ball? I
do that when I'm drunk.
All right. So I actually found Mark through Chris. So when I first started reading, when I got my first Kindle and was getting back into that after a hiatus for some health issues, getting blown up will do that to you. I found his Progenitors War series. And when he stopped writing that, he sent it out in one of his social medias that he was doing that to work on a story with somebody called Mark Wandrey. And first I cussed you out because I was kind of mad. I wanted that series to end, and he sort of left it on a cliffhanger. But then I read it and, kind of liked it. So here we are. I found you through your co-author. Probably one of the rare people to tell you that, huh?
Pretty much.
So, all right, Doc, you got to ask him the most important question, and we decided he gets to stay.
Star Wars, Firefly, or Star Trek?
Yes.
I guess we have to keep them. Okay.
If I had to pick one, it would be Star Wars because it goes back the farthest with me. I went and saw it when I was 12 years old in the movie theater in Tacoma. And it literally changed my life. I think I saw it 26 times in the theaters before it finally went away.
That's a lot of sitting still.
Yeah, it's a lot of popcorn too.
So, okay. Well then, fantasy religion question.
Okay.
Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, or Forgotten Realms? I'm changing it up. Nobody ever says Game of Thrones, so I'm changing it up.
Never liked Forgotten Realms. So, Lord of the Rings for the mythos, Harry Potter for the storytelling.
Okay. That's fair. Yeah, no, you used to ask Game of Thrones, but nobody ever says Game of Thrones. So
I don't know that there are as many like iconic fantasy that crossed over to TV, because what do you notice? Star Trek, Star Wars, and Firefly, not only were they books, they were TV, so they sort of affected culture. There's not as much.
Started as TV. It started as TV.
Okay, well, maybe that's why. But anyway, so we were looking for something equally as iconic. And Game of Thrones was for a while. I remember when everyone was like, you better not spoil Game of Thrones.
And then there was the final season.
It's an epic example on how not to finish a run, that's for sure.
Yeah. I love to say it was beta testing the ending for all the book readers.
That works.
So
okay, yeah, they just better not do that when they finish it. Let's like write something entirely new. Hold it, did I say Germ and writing in the same sentence? No, never mind.
He's too busy playing on Twitter.
In trouble. So, which one was your first love, sci-fi or fantasy?
Science fiction.
Okay.
I'm only a casual fan of fantasy. Like my wife Joy, she would read 10 fantasy books for every sci-fi. I would read 20 sci-fi books for every fantasy.
So what is it that you love about science fiction?
I'm a child of the space age, the space race. I watched Neil Armstrong step on the moon at 5 years old, and discovered Star Trek at almost exactly the same time. Of course, it was reruns when I discovered it, but it still spoke to me. I had a little book when I was a little kid. It's a little animated book that says "You will live on the moon," and it was something that I believed would happen. And then reality and politics set in, and it didn't happen. So needless to say, I'm a very excited camper right now. Elon Musk is my god. I think we're seeing the beginning of what we thought we would see 50 years ago. At least I hope we are. So naturally, it just leads me in the direction of when I started doing fiction. Although really the first book I ever wrote was about dinosaurs, but that was like 50 years ago.
I mean, dinosaurs are pretty awesome.
They were pretty cool.
That. And everybody that loves science and science fiction and space likes Elon. People investing in cryptocurrency, not so much.
Yeah, I still magic money to me. I don't quite get it.
So, what was your first memory of engaging in speculative fiction? Was it going to Star Wars and watching the movie? Was it the Star Trek and watching the man land on the moon? Where did you first discover the genre?
Watching a man land on the moon is not in the genre. That is scientific fact, JR.
Allegedly.
Yes, we landed on the moon and we never went back because guys litter.
I should have worn my other shirt. I have a NASA shirt that has the NASA meatball and it says "not flat" on it, and along the bottom it says "No, really, we checked." I mean, really, it was Star Wars and Star Trek that did that, but watching the real thing, and then my real exposure to speculative was a little game came out called Traveler in the mid-'70s that I discovered and thought, oh wow, I can actually write my own space adventures. And well, yeah, that's really not true because actually I found Heinlein before that. So Robert Heinlein's novel, The Rolling Stones, was the first science fiction novel I remember reading, so it probably was the first one. And within a matter of a couple weeks, I had eaten every Heinlein book in the library, not literally, but well, actually, it's kind of literally. And at that point, I had to go out to local libraries, and I was like raiding the local libraries for science fiction. The librarians would say, "What do you want, little boy?" And I'm like, "Sci-fi." They'd look at me and roll their eyes and point me at the right section. But then that led to being a gamer, and then that led to being a writer, and the rest is history.
So, did you enjoy Gamma World when that came out as well?
No, actually, I was more of a fan of Twilight 2000 and the Aftermath, the game. I think Gamma World was a little too heavy on the weird mutant magic stuff.
Well, fair enough. All right. So how did your love of, well, first off, when it comes to cool sci-fi shirts and NASA shirts, my favorite I saw was a picture of the planet, and it said, "Dear NASA, I was big enough for your mother," signed Pluto. That's my favorite, because Pluto's still a planet, dang it. They're all wrong.
And even as a Sailor Scout.
My favorite non-snarky NASA shirt is one that's got a picture of an asteroid hitting the planet, and it says, asteroids are nature's way of saying, hey, how's that space program coming?
I do like that one. I'll have to look for it.
That's
so how did how did your love of speculative fiction translate into you writing stories in it? Was it just saying dinosaurs got boring, I want to try something else? How'd that happen?
It was just literally a natural thing. I would read. I literally tried copying Highland stories early on, and then when Battlestar Galactica came out, I just kind of wrote this rip-off trope of it, sort of. You know, it was I called it Star Block Aquatica was my name for it, and it was just this huge ship the size of a planet. It was, of course, they have to do it bigger. You know, that's how that works. And I had the crazy idea that everybody was like an aquatic human, so the thing was full of water, and I never, of course, finished anything in it, but it was just my way of realizing that I could take something somebody else did and give it a twist, and there might be some possibilities in there.
So have you found some of those early works that you could potentially release to your Patreon fans if they if you had it?
Oh, yeah,
I know you have a Patreon account.
Doing that.
Yeah, he was telling me he did that, so I thought that'd be a
finding
neat idea.
Really do it and finding it actually doing it are two different things. That story, that one I told you about just a minute ago, I don't know. That's lost to history. But I do have a notebook that has about 6 or 8 short stories that I wrote probably in the early 1980s, maybe late 70s. Those may find their way in eventually. And those are mostly post-apocalyptic stuff. That was my first genre I like to write in. I discovered men's adventure series like John Stone's The Ashes and Ahern's Survivalist series, and that stuff was because I'm also a child of the Cold War, so that was like, we're going to get nuked any day, you know. So this is how this is all going to work and everything. And I devoured the genre as much as I could and tried. Flexed my muscles by writing in it. Nothing ever published in it. In fact, the closest I finally got was when I started writing my zombie apocalypse series. I finally had a chance to dance down that road a little bit. But that's the direction I went instead. So really, it took me a while to get into space, I guess you could say.
Okay. So the many authors let their real life experience influence the stories they tell. So were there any specific formidable moments that shape you as a storyteller?
We didn't travel much as a kid. I was extremely unhappy with my father for not taking me down to Florida to watch rockets launch and stuff like that. But he was very grounded. This is the irony. The man made his career working for Boeing as an aerospace machinist. So he made parts for rockets, stuff like that, but had no interest in watching them launch. I would have happily sold a redundant organ to get a chance to go down and watch something take off. But I never got a chance until Joy and I, my wife Joy, went down to Florida and we watched the test flight of the Falcon Heavy. That was the first time I ever saw a rocket launch in person. And I'm really not happy that it took 50 years to happen, because if you haven't done it, you have to. It's watching a rocket launch is probably the coolest thing you can do with your clothes on.
So do you think that's what led to your wanderlust and your traveling with the RV, was the wanting to travel as a kid?
Definitely, because we didn't do it much. I mean, we had like 2 or 3 family vacations with the family truckster and the camper, and I always wanted to go more. Every summer, like, we're gonna go. We almost never went. So as soon as I turned 18 and had a car, I went camping all the time with my friends. And as soon as I had the opportunity, I moved across the country with my best friend to Indiana from Seattle. And I've never really stopped. With logistics for a while, drove trucks around, and then when I started my career after we had our child, I was basically traveling probably 30 weeks out of the year, going around to warehouses and stuff. It was great. I've always liked it. And led to how I'm living my life now, I guess.
Your wife is a very patient woman for doing that.
She's extremely patient, and luckily she's very independent. So. It was only hard when my son was little. That was difficult. But for that period, at least, I didn't go anywhere, but I worked the night shift. So we always had challenges, just the way it was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything has challenges, but I always look at Joy and I'm like, you're a very patient woman for doing it. She goes, I love it. And I'm like, yeah, no, any perfect man who came up to me and was like, you want to go traveling around in an RV? I'd be like, no, you're no longer perfect. So, we practiced for months before we did it. We had. I remember watching some of that.
Yeah, we had a little RV and we took off for the first trip for like 4 weeks. Came back a month or so later. We left again for like 6 or 7 weeks, and we came back and said, "Why are we coming home?" I never looked back.
All right, so now we get to ask your favoriteest questions of them all. particularly important since you just left the first con back after the Wu flu. So let's hit this, Doc.
Okay. Wait. Oh yeah, never mind. Sorry, you threw me for a second. So transitioning away from the writing side of things, have you had any cool fan art or fan cosplay or stuff? Come on, Mark. I already know the answer, so give it to us.
Fan art, not really. I mean, there's been a little bit of stuff out there, but the cosplay, I mean, I have my own fan organization, so I got to see a ton of it this weekend. The first Fantasy was 2 years ago, and we were still a little bit younger, and there was some people in costume. Maybe the dining out, we did a special event, maybe 1 in 10. 10 or 20 people were there. But this year, they were, when I showed up at the hotel, one of the Mercenary Guild units, the Stormbreakers, they had 2 people as an honor guard at the front door, 2 mercs standing there watching the front door. And it never looked back from there. There were dozens of people in cosplay. We had more people doing cosplay than David Weber did. I was kind of surprised and happy. It was very cool. But art, not really. I know there's probably artists out there, but we're still growing as a genre. I mean, we're only 4.5 years old, so it'll come. We pay for most of ours still at this point, but I won't be unhappy to see some people do some stuff like that.
Yes, I remember the dining out. I've had many a grog. The grog was much better this year. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
it was.
Kevin Eikenberry.
Kevin excelled this year. It was not only not bad, but it wasn't disgusting even, actually. So
toothpaste should not be grog, and that's what I told them year 1.
Well, you did the alcoholic. I never touched it. How bad was it?
You're the alcoholic.
Actually wasn't bad at all.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
That's like saying 1 is bigger than 0 if you compare it to the year 1 grog, which had toothpaste in it. I will never forgive them.
Well, I guess by Yvonne, she was either just in a hurry to get the party going or just liked it. I couldn't figure out which.
Yes. So has anybody asked you for your autograph out in public away from a convention or a book signing event?
Yes.
Okay.
Joy pimps me regularly. She'll always tell me, my my husband's an author, and she's like, oh, really? And next thing you know, cards are flying. And quite a few times I've had people immediately want a book. And since I live in my house, house drives around, I usually have them. So it usually ends up in a book and a signature. It's never had somebody just out of the blue come out of there yet. Some of the other authors in the Horsemen universe have been recognized in public, but my time hasn't come yet for that.
Well, Casey is very recognizable in public. So is Marisa.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, in fact, I think both of those were the ones who have been recognized in public. Is the girls get all the fun.
Yes, that's why we're girls.
So
it has it. You know what? I'm gonna say this one. It balances all the weird shit that you guys do to us.
We don't do any weird shit. What are you talking about?
Yeah. No. We give birth to human beings. Try a new one.
There we go. All right, go on to making babies right away. I see how it is.
Dude, my hip has never been the same.
All right. No, hold on. So I have to know, since we're talking cosplay, so does that mean since you said your wife pimps you out, she's going to wear like the leopard skin fedora and like the 80s seersucker suits when she's pimping you out? That's her cosplay?
No, she doesn't even go for the high heels, actually. She just kind of just starts pulling out cards.
Dude, those things hurt.
She needs to get her pimp boots. All right, you can ask the next question. This just got weird.
It just got weird. It didn't start that way. Okay. Damn it, JR. So have you ever spotted someone reading one of your books out in the wild?
No, not yet. I mean, at cons and everything like that, or someplace where I might spot them, but no, just walking down the street. And here's the thing: is you know the numbers. Like 1 in 10 people when they leave school never read a book ever again. So you're off to the bats there. And 75% of people read less than 2 books a year. It's just we live in a different group, and even now, electronics outnumber paper books. So unless I lean over their shoulder and happen to realize the book, the Kindle on their screen is one of my books, how would you even tell? When I flew 3 years ago and I was still flying, most of the people who read all were using their computers, their phones, or whatever the Kindle devices are called. One of those computers.
Nooks. They're called Nooks. That's what they are.
That's only because you're from Barnes and Noble and you're not a purist.
I love my Nook.
So the sad thing is part of the reason people learn that they hate to read is because the crap they make us read in school is so mind-numbingly drivel.
They
Like
can't
some of
wait
that
to
crap. Yeah, you can't wait to never pick up a book again.
In an interview was asked how she felt about actually it was also at Dragon Con that she got asked how she felt about the fact that the Littlest Dragon Boy was a short story. I think I have the title right. And now included in academics. And she goes, I really wish they wouldn't do that because I want people to like my books. And most people, when they read something for school, don't. So, but I love reading.
I'm a voracious reader. By the time I got to high school, I was a voracious reader. I mean, literally, I never went anywhere without a paperback in my back pocket. You know, purists hate that kind of stuff, but it's like I would buy it, wear it, use it. You know, by the time I was done with it, it almost wasn't fit to hand down. But I also read a lot of my books multiple times, so it just wasn't unusual to be reading something constantly. But even then, my friends. But you mentioned the crap they make you read in school. I mean, that's exactly it. The last book I remember being forced to read in high school was A Tale of Two Cities. I was ready to pull my own fingernails out by the time I was done with that thing. It was just horrendously long-worded. Yeah. See, I'm a writer. I know word stuff.
Long-winded?
Long-winded. That's it. Yeah, just bleh,
I hate to read. I can fix authors.
That's what she tells me all the time.
No, but I get it though. I actually had a teacher who complained to my mom, and goes, I'm worried about her social development, and because I never talked in school, I just read a book and would look at you and go, why are you talking to me? If you came up to me and tried talking to me, and my other teacher, my advisor looked at my mom and went, ignore him. She's doing just fine. She shouldn't talk to those kids anyways. I was reading the same stuff my English teacher loved. So she was very biased. So what's the weirdest, funniest story you've had of a fan interaction since you started writing? And please remember, we are a family show and I've met your fans, which is why I'm saying this.
Well, that would be one of my actual, someone related to one of the other authors sending me weird stuff in the mail as replay for a practical joke. That would probably have to
I remember that. That was gorgeous.
Yeah, actually Chris Kennedy's wife Sheila, apparently she didn't like being the brunt of a joke when she didn't get a joke. So she's apparently an epic practical joker, and then proceeded to send me My Little Pony stuff in the mail with cute little notes with it. And it got to the point I was getting ready to call the post office, tell them to stop delivering our mail. When she finally came out and admitted it was her, it was more than a year long. It was awkward. But as far as fans go, other than the typical fan,
wait.
There's more.
We gotta tell them what it is, though.
So not only did she send him stuff, because I happened to see some of this maybe before it went out, she would write it like stalkerish. So she was cutting out letters of newspapers and magazines and gluing them on with creepy messages.
It was very Unabomber-esque.
It was like if.
But Mark, you're such a legendary brony.
Did you say I am?
Yes.
No, I'm not. I wrote about a character who is, because I was looking for a character trait and I put it in a story. Now everybody thinks I'm a brony and I'm not.
It could be worse. People think James Hunter's a brony too.
Harry Potter's a brony?
No, people think James Hunter's a brony too. And he didn't even put one in his books.
I mean, really, the reality is I can think of worse things to be if you want to be something out there, But yeah, it's just, everybody knows I'm kind of annoyed. It's always one of the most common things to come up. And it's actually one of the biggest common criticisms of Carver's Cavaliers. It's like, there's My Little Pony. I don't want to read this stuff, It's like, wow, that's all it takes to scare you off. I don't know what to say, Have you ever read some of the crap out by other authors these days?
So, JR, pay attention.
I was paying attention. I was just going to see how long he would rant, but
I thought you were looking for him with a brony.
No, I was gonna, let that one slide. I think he ranted enough. I just wanted to see if he was gonna keep going. But if you want to stop it and stop our fun, I guess.
No,
Joy will thank you.
no. I would pay money to see a 4HU brony mashup.
I don't think. Well, so when that first
Wandrey's
came
gonna
out,
kill me one day.
when that first came out and it was all over the leaderboards, one of the people was talking about it on the Keystroke Medium podcast, and I ended up daring Kayleen to write a brony My Little Pony Space Marine thing going on. And she ended up taking the idea and turning it into something else. So it actually exists in the wild, inspired by Cartwright's Cavaliers. Well, by me taunting her because I'd read Cartwright's Cavaliers.
That's too funny.
See, Mark, it's your fault.
But well, she's a good writer, so it works out. So if it wins awards, you can thank yourself in hindsight, I guess. So right, this is the part of the interview, Mark, where we talk about everything you have written. So can you give us the highlights reel?
I think I'm more than 30 books. That would be kind of challenging. Like I said, I started with the Earth Song series.
Children.
That one's kind of got stuck right now because the sales fell off, but the readers have been promising completion and they will get it. I've actually been working on outlining for the next book right now. There's my Turning Point series, which is zombie apocalypse with a twist. No walking undead. They're actually plague victims, more like 28 days later, that sort of a thing. That was 3 books. It's completed. There may be more of that in the future. And of course, there's the Four Horsemen universe, which is the 63rd book, was published on Friday. That started on December 21st, 2016. So it's not even 5 years old. Our average rate, I guess, would be about 15 books a year so far in that neighborhood. We, for a while, last year or the year before, we published a book every 3 weeks. And that was pretty exciting at that time. We're getting later in the series now, so we're starting to plot out how everything we've been doing will end. It doesn't mean the universe is ending, but we do have plans to wrap up this plot line, basically, the whole overarching story plan.
Okay, so on that future day, a million years from now, when you write the last Four Horsemen universe book, what do you think you're going to pivot to next? It sounds like most of your series are wrapping up. It sounds like you're close to the end of a lot of them.
It is. I'm actually right now about halfway through first one, my first urban fantasy. Yeah, the series is called The Traveling Gods, and the first book is Twilight of the Neon Gods. And it's co-written with my wife, and I'm hoping it will be, well, I'm going to put it out for publication to see who I can get to pick it up, but that's not till, I expect to be done before Christmas, so maybe you'll see it next year. Depends who picks it up. It could be a couple of years, or it could be within a few months after it's done. It all depends how that goes.
Okay. So while those all sound fascinating, today we're here to talk about Cartwright's Cavaliers, if you couldn't have guessed. So where did you get the premise for this universe? How did you come up with the idea for the series? Was it psychedelics, a Ouija board, overindulging in expired Pepsi?
Believe it or not, it was Ready Player One. I kind of had this kind of twisted up idea of what if the aliens had shown up and didn't like us and didn't want to play games with us, but there was this ancient alien technology that nobody had been able to figure out how to use. And what if it was a bunch of fat brony gamer kids that actually figured out how to use it? See, that's where that came from. And this technology allowed them to dominate, combat within the universe. And all of a sudden now humans are badasses because of all the fat loser kids, Hold it. Why am I saying this out loud? Anyway, that was the basis of the idea. That was literally it. And because I'm a pantser, I kind of started with an idea and I realized there's got to be a full book in here. So I just started writing it. Early on, though, I realized there was a lot of potential. So I asked Chris to write with me, and he didn't have time at that point. But when he did a year later, we sat down and talked about it and realized we had 4 books instead of 1. And that was it. The final version did not look a lot at all like I had started with it. In fact, I recently released to my Patreons my first 6 chapters of it. It was called The White Company at that point.
Okay.
Very different.
So before we dig in too deeply, we are going to take a look at this cover. And while I'm pulling that up, why don't you tell us the story of how this piece of art came to be?
That was literally a case of Chris. He tried to find a cover through... dang, what's that one site?
DeviantArt?
No, the place that does covers. You throw out. Now you throw out like a couple $100 as a commission, and they give you examples, and you get to pick one of them. It'll come to me in a minute, but anyway, he tried to find something there, and nobody was coming up with anything good. So he happened to find a connection from another author that had done some covers, and the guy was in Thailand. To this day, I don't know what his name is. We refer to him as Thai Guy, and he was our main artist, and he came up with this conception. And when Chris explained to it what it was, and first time I was like, "Holy hell, that's a Caspar!" It was absolutely perfect. The only thing wrong with it, and you won't see it there, is you look in the background, right down by the blade to the left. It looks like there's a little robot down there on the full blown up wrap. And that was this guy's interpretation of a tarantula. It's just like a funky little robot like thing that looked a little bit like a spider. And we were like, just wrap that thing around and forget about it. It's good enough, you know. The rest of it became very iconic for the way a Caspar would look. In particular, that's a Mark 7 Caspar we eventually decided. And that's because on later covers you see different versions.
Zoom in on the top. There's something really cool up there at the top. The typography.
Wonder whatever that might be. Let's
I don't
see.
know.
What is that? Can you see it?
2017 Dragon Award finalist for Best Military Sci-Fi.
That was the first time David Weber.
That's the first time David Weber won. You lost to David. Okay.
Yeah, I lost him several years in a row. That was kind of his specialty, is whooping our butt in the category. I can't think of anybody better to get beaten by, mind you. But yeah, I was a 4-time nominee. That was the only one to date that I know of. Every year got nominated for one of the books. My first one, though, was actually A Time to Die, which was my first of that zombie series I mentioned earlier. So I was lucky to be in there.
Real quick, offshoot segue, whatever we want to call it. It is, for dear listeners, it is still in the nomination process if you want to nominate for the 2021 Dragon Award winner. Fun. And this is entirely by fans, for fans.
Yep.
So go, and then in August, we'll put up the voting ballots.
Sorry. I think the only requirement is that it has to be a new book that is not a reprint.
It has to be a new book published from like July, I think, July something, 2020 through current.
Correct. Yep, that's the only requirements for it. And of course, the person needs to accept when they get the nomination. But they pick the top 5, Cisca, or the top 4.
They tend to pick the top 4. In they will take category nominations, like say like Cartwright Cavaliers ended up in sci-fi as well as Mill SF. They'll combine them into whatever category it was that got the most nominations in it. So but sometimes that line can be very sketchy and more of a dotted line than a solid line on the categories. So, but we work really hard to get that to you. And every year and under Sci-Fi Shenanigans, we always covered the finalists. So this year we're really looking forward to doing that again. Because
now we can talk about more than just sci-fi.
Yes, we can talk about fantasies.
Wait a minute. It's a family-friendly show.
I wasn't going there. You know what? I have a fantasy that brain power burns more calories than it does.
All right. So now we know the story of that art. Let's talk about the book itself. So what would you give as your 30-second elevator pitch for this novel?
Kill aliens, get paid.
That is 30 seconds. You win.
I mean, the quick and dirty of it is, imagine 10 years from now, aliens land on Earth and there's nothing we have that they want. But they want us to join anyway, because if we join their galactic union, then we can get all kinds of goodies, maybe. And so we put it up to a vote to a UN, and while we're doing that, terrorists blow up the UN, kill the alien guards, and the alien guards start a war to avenge themselves. And when they do that, they find out we can fight. And it turns out we're one of only 37 races in the galaxy that can do it. And we become one of those, that 37th, and kill aliens, get paid as mercenaries.
So what is it that makes your series special and unique in the Crowded Mill SF series?
It started with the 4 books by Chris and I, but we almost immediately opened it up through anthologies. We have 9 anthologies to date that have published as more than 30 authors, and quite a few of them were brand new first-time authors. We always try to bring every anthology we do, we bring at least a few unpublished authors into the world. It gives them their opportunity to start, and everybody knows as an author, if you're trying to make it, you need those chances. So we're giving them those chances. In fact, several of our authors that commonly write books now got their start there. My best friend John Osborne did. I got him a chance to be one of those authors. I told him, hey, you write a story, I'll put it in front of Chris. Not making any promises, but turned out to be great. And then he ended up starting writing books too. And that was his first short story. And he's now written probably 6 or 7 short stories, and I think 5 novels to date. The other thing is, we have to say it's fiction without a message. The Four Horsemen universe is just freewheeling, mecha alien combat sort of stuff. We don't try to preach to anybody. There's no overwhelming moralistic stories behind it. If there's any moralistic story behind it, is the morals can get in the way of good fight. It's completely open like that, and we want people to come and enjoy the story and want, wow, that was a ripping good tale. What one's next? And surprisingly, there's 62 more books, and we get 2 reactions after they finish this one. One of it is, oh my god, more books. The other one is, oh my god, that's a lot of books. But either way, I don't mind.
So one of your short stories in the Four Horsemen universe has been on a Hugo reading list.
No.
Yeah. Caspars Widows, written by J.R. Handley.
I had no idea.
It was on the Hugo's reading list.
That's
for
awesome.
the year that Richard Fox won, and there was all that hullabaloo. I think you'd Hadjaya Jartney, and I probably butchered your name, sir, and I'm sorry. It was that year that it made it.
Oh, well, very sweet, JR.
No, I can't believe I knew something about 4HU. You didn't.
I don't know if Chris knows that, does he?
He did. He's the one who told me.
I'm so psyched. I'm so proud of myself. I wish I knew that over the weekend.
I just type on my computer. What do I know?
Well, you were probably just caffeinated when he told you, and you're like, sure, whatever, and typing away like a trained monkey.
That's remotely possible.
I've seen you when you get in your flow state. When you were at the 20 Books convention in 2018, he was sitting at the breakfast that we were all supposed to be visiting, and he's like, "Hold on, I got an idea," and he was just clacking away.
Hey,
so
I know better than to interrupt greatness.
If Fantasy that happened, we were actually plotting out the very end of the Four Horsemen universe, the last thing that will happen in this story arc. And
I'm surprised the fans didn't nuke you. If they'd known, they might have stopped you.
Somebody was actually turns out had been listening in on us and found out about it. Luckily, they're just trustworthy enough probably to keep their yap shut. But the great thing about it, remember, we're pantsers, so if it came out, we would just change it.
So the cool thing is the convention he's talking about is if you're on the East Coast, there's this little tiny convention called Fantasy Rocks. I think that's its official name. It's tiny by Cisca standards.
That's the website address.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantasy is called Fantasy, and it is a wonderful small con. Don't just because the entire contents of Fantasy fits in fantasy literature is no reason to knock it. It is a wonderful small con, and every con starts somewhere, and this is a great one, and it's off to a great start. So,
on a healthy year, we had about 350 people. We got about 250 this year, so it was a little low. But I mean, I've been to plenty of cons with between 200 to 400 people that were just absolutely awesome cons. It doesn't have to be 100,000 people like Dragon Con, or even 750.
No. There is a wonderful charm of a small con where you actually get to see people multiple times.
And Joel Line is the guy who designed it. I think he's still the ComCon, actually. I'm not sure. ComChair. But he'd been in dozens of cons. He'd helped with them. He did lots of hospitality with them. And when the opportunity came to do this, he ran with it. And in the first year he did it, he completely knocked it out of the park. We were just stunned. I've been to cons who've been running for 20 years that weren't as good as his first year. And he knows what he's doing. And it's worth attending. Next March, Fantasy, FANTASCI.ROCKS. Tickets are up already. And I'd recommend going to it. It's a great time. It's in Raleigh in March, so it's a great early con to start the year off.
I was going to make an inappropriate joke, but Doc walked all over it. So you get to ask the next question. You ruined my thunder, stole my joke. I don't get very many of them that are actually funny, but okay.
Does he always whine this much?
No. He's just trying to make Cordova look good. So which science fiction fantasy tropes do you feel Cartwright Cavaliers hits best?
Well, it's a lot like Starship Troopers. There's a lot of elements to it, and that's because of the powered armor. The book, there never was a movie, just to make sure we're sure on that. We have our own page on Wiki Tropes or whatever it is.
Story Tropes.
Story Trope. It's extensive. We were looking through it the other day, and I'm like, oh my god, it was like 60 entries on it. We have a little bit of the unobtainium, F11 in our uterus. Everyone has to do it. When you world build, you've got to come up with a few things to create limits for stuff to work. And I don't think we went overboard. The weirdest thing we have is like red diamonds are the main part of currency, and they're actually one of the rarest things you can find. There's only like a couple of red diamonds in existence, bigger than a carrot. So Chris came up with that actually off the spur of the moment. I had never had any intention of there being hard currency, and he had the idea, and I looked him up and I went, "Wow, that's a really good idea." A few others, I'm sure. I don't think there's any My Little Pony tropes, are there? No. Okay, good. So yeah, we're good.
I don't know. We can find out. Listeners, if you have any My Little Pony tropes, let us know.
That's
so
okay. You don't have to do that. Really.
It's tvtropes.org, and if you look, when you open that up, you just type in Four Horsemen, and the Four Horsemen universe is its own TV trope.
It is, and there's some awesome ones in there too. I was really, originally I was going to be offended, and I read it and I'm like, oh my god, this is all right, and it's really awesome.
And we will put that link in the show notes. So if when you're watching or listening to this, you scroll to the bottom where we list all his contact information, we will have this up for you so you can check it out yourself, give it a read.
Someone put a lot of work in it.
So what, on to kind of more the story itself, can you tell us a little bit about what makes this main character special, the special flower child?
So hold on. This is where he would normally tell us about, the genre, but since he's already spilled the beans that this is military science fiction, what is it specifically, and you never said, about military science fiction as a genre that appeals to you?
The gun?
I actually can't say. I'm not. I never. Unlike 3/4 of our authors, I didn't serve. I liked pizzas way too much. I rolled into the recruiting office at 17. And he goes, "Well, good son, you got great test scores. Lose 100 pounds, and we'll get you in." I'm like, okay. I think it was more like 50 pounds, but anyway. So I didn't serve, so I think maybe there's a little bit of that. A lot of people did in my family. My father was a World War II vet, and I was a little regretful that didn't work out. And this just really called to me. I have so many friends who are vets, and I sit and listen to them, and I listen to the stories, and this kind of stuff really lights my imagination. And I have so much respect for this. I work into my writing, and I've had fans ask me a dozen times, "So where'd you serve?" I'm like, "I didn't." And he said, "Well, you write like you did, and I respect that." And that's partly because I just ask a lot of questions. I pump other people who are vets for information and scenarios and situations, and I put as much of that I can into the story. Now, people like Doc Wolrab and others like that, I mean, they write the gritty stuff because they've been it. So I just do the best that I can. But the genre, ever since Starship Troopers, it was like, this is really what I kind of want to write. And ironically, that was my first real success. It's worked really well. You could argue the Earthsong series is also military science fiction, but it has much more of a space opera feel to it because the ships can go like tens of thousands of light years per hour and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. This one is as hard science fiction as we can make it. There's only so much you can get away with. So we try to keep it grounded, but sometimes it just kind of flies off on its own. What can you do?
Fair enough. So I know there is as much as it is a specific subgenre, there is also a lot of variance within the military sci-fi story, just like there are between different kinds of services and service members. So what about it is it that makes your character special and unique for this subgenre?
This guy starts off as somebody who would never be in the military. Mercenaries in the Four Horsemen universe are different critters to start with. Not all of them. I mean, the races run from little like chipmunk kind of looking guys up to these, spiders the size of a small car. So once you get into that sort of situation, you kind of file the serial numbers off. You're not going to have typical warriors. But most of the Earth mercs tend to be, the combat ones, tend to be the bruiser types. These are the guys who can fight, they can move, they can shoot and move, they can do all these kind of things. And Jim didn't fit that profile. Jim Cartwright's the main character. He's 18 years old at the beginning, and he's supposed to be the heir to one of the illustrious Four Horsemen units. This is what the Four Horsemen's all about. And things go wrong right before he's supposed to take over. He was going to be able to be in charge even though he didn't fit the physical mold because, well, he inherited it. So he probably would have ran it from a chair, that sort of thing. But then everything went broke and he was forced to do it himself. There was nobody else to run it. His dad had died, and he has to stand up he has to stand in the line of duty and do it. And it ends up that the spirit of what he is, and he is a Cartwright, is enough to keep him going and get him through it. And I've always believed that, heroism doesn't necessarily come with body type. Anybody can be a hero if the situation presents themselves to it. And that's what I wanted for Jim. Yeah, he's a little bit of me. Everybody does that. Larry Correa has his combat accountant, and I've got Jim Cartwright. Larry, Owen Pitt eats a lot less pizza than Jim does, but I resisted turning him into a stud as soon as it happened. A lot of people are saying, well, why didn't he just get treatments and get thinner? And I was like, he never wanted to. He wants to do it himself. So years down the road, he's slimmed out a little bit, but he still only fits in certain Caspars. He's too big to fit in the others and probably always will be.
Okay, that was the question.
It helps when you can write your own AR-670-1. So
a little bit, yep.
For those who don't know, that is the the Army regulation that covers the wear and fit of the uniform and all those kind of things like health standards.
Health standards are a myth. You can be a take test.
Shape in Cartwright Cavaliers. Is that what you're saying, Mark?
What was that? I missed part of that.
Round is a shape.
Well, yeah, I mean, for them, even his top sergeant is named Buddha. He's a Polynesian. He's from Hawaii, and he's a big dude too. But he was always a lot more muscly than Jim was. So it was less of an issue to be a merc. And if you're in armor and you could be a badass, you could get away with it. I mean, this is powered combat suits, so you still have to be relatively tough, and he struggles with that. So maybe there's still hope for us if first contact happens in 4 years like it's supposed to.
Okay, so now you know how it all ends. COVID was just the warm-up. So were there any secondary characters that were especially memorable to you as you were writing this first novel in the Four Horsemen universe?
Oh, absolutely. Murdoch, he's one of the ones. He was one of the sergeants. Buddha, I already mentioned. His mentor was a man named Hargrave, who had been his father's second in command for a while. Jim's little friend, Splunk, an alien fae. He meets on another planet that helps him. There was a pretty good cast of characters, and some of them are still alive.
All right there, Martin.
It'll be Chris Kennedy.
So Chris is the one that kills all of our favorites?
He's got the higher body count. There's no doubt about it. The man loves to. When he asks you for a red shirt, you better realize you're probably not going to survive the incident.
I have never volunteered to be redshirted.
I can take care of that.
That's still not. You can redshirt me. That doesn't mean I volunteered.
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of the requirement for any of the readers know, any of the listeners know. If you want to be in a novel, you've got to pretty much volunteer, and it's called being a red shirt, like in Star Trek. And it usually means you're not going to survive. We have these things we give out to our notables in the Four Horsemen universe. So if you had a seriously good death, you can earn one of these guys here. This is a special challenge coin.
Hold on.
Well, that's right.
Let's zoom in on you.
Let me get it out of the sleeve. You can actually see it here. It's basically. Go ahead.
My given name has appeared in several books as the villain, but I actually was. It was not a deliberate redshirting. It's
a tombstone with arrows in it, and the tombstone says "I died." There's a cloud with lightning bolt coming out of it. We conceived of that like 2 years ago at Fantasy to award to notable deaths. The first one awarded was to Chris Summercorn, who had a year before won an auction at LibertyCon to be redshirted. In fact, there were two of them, one by me, one by Chris. Actually, it was 3 years ago now, I think. Anyway, so we wrote him into not one Four Horsemen book, not two, but we wrote him into all four of the first Four Horsemen books. And he went from book to book to book until he had met his end in the book, The Golden Horde. And it was such a notable end, and he was such a good sport about it because his character now is literally a trope within the Four Horsemen universe that we created that coin, awarded him as the first one, and we may actually have to have a Summercorn award one day for blowing up so graciously.
I got to get killed in a Four Horsemen universe too, and the reason you have to volunteer, Doc, is so you don't get sued if someone doesn't like how you kill them.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's a "Don't Sue Me" thing. But when he killed me in one of his books, Chris Kennedy did, and I told him that was kind of disappointing. He could do better. And that's when he had me visiting a house of ill repute, and I had paid the lady for the services. And then before they were rendered, a space toilet landed on my head.
There goes PG-13.
JR really wants to be the next Joe Buckley.
That's right. I'm going to be the Joe Buckley of my generation.
And Joe Buckley has died in the Four Horsemen universe. In fact, I killed him in Cartwright's Cavaliers.
Did you really? I missed that.
My name has appeared in a Jody Lanai book, Moon Tracks, as well as Dragon's Kin and by Ann and Todd. But I mean, I haven't. Suing somebody would be mean.
Yeah, but it happens.
Like,
so that's
not capable about mean. Come on.
What? I would not
mean.
sue somebody for doing it. But I mean, and David Weber made my given name into a human trafficker.
Ouch!
So,
did you make
him
mad?
He didn't know me at the time, though. He just knew apparently my name is evil.
You need to put Cisca's picture back up. They're all just staring at me, and that's boring.
Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
But you have such a lovely beard.
I've been working on it for a while. This is my New York Times bestseller beard. If I ever make the New York Times bestseller list, I'll cut it off. Or maybe I'll do it in a charity event at some point. I don't know. We'll see.
I knew an author, James A. Moore. He got a lot of money when he cut his hair short at a charity auction. They even like the person got to do it themselves. They had a stylist on standby to fix it. But
so, all right. So we talked about the good guys. We talked about the secondary characters. Now let's talk about the bad guys. Without any spoilers, what are the antagonists for this story? He's thinking about that beard getting shaved off. Or he froze. Mark, are you still with us?
No. Hopefully he clicks the link and comes back.
All right. So while he does that, we can see if we can get him to refresh. Doc, why don't you tell us about the Dragon Con stuff that's going on so you can get the update on everyone that wants to know everything about nominating a book.
So, well, you just Google Dragon Awards, and you can. It's a For Fans by Fans award that we have been doing since about, I want to say 2017. And we give out the award during Dragon Con. It's a beautiful award. It has David Weber has won many as the, I have personally teased David Weber that he doesn't win, Honor wins, because Honor has won several, and but it's so. And authors, if you're listening and you're like, because you love us, there is stuff so that you can pimp and get your fans to nominate you. So it's one nomination per person, and you get your ballot. And if you miss, we've been doing it since 2016. So if you've missed the nomination process, let's say, you can still register to vote. And we cover wonderful, one second, I'm pulling up as we're doing this, what the categories are. So, and we've done best science fiction novel, best fantasy novel, including paranormal, best young adult, middle grade novel, best military, sci-fi, or fantasy novel, best alternate history, media tie-in novel, horror novel, best comic book, best graphic novel, best science fiction or fantasy TV series. We were actually the only award given to the original Wonder Woman movie. Like the Hugos and other things kind of ignored her, and that was a crying shame because Wonder Woman is amazing. And if Mark disagrees with me, we'll boot him again.
We didn't boot him. His internet froze, people. All right.
I will boot him. Wonder
Mark,
Woman's amazing.
We had just asked you before the internet gods tried to go gremlin on your computer. We've talked about the good guys. We've talked about the bad guys, secondary characters, but we didn't talk about the bad guys, I should say. So what are the antagonists in this novel?
The antagonists kind of are what ends up being the default.
Mark, speak up.
No, it must have reached. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Your dulcet tones.
Ironically, in the Four Horsemen universe, there really is no specific villain. They tend to be actually organizations and groups. And in the first one, the villain's actually the Mercenary Guild itself, which is where we get most of our money, led by an alien known as Peepo, because the Mercenary Guild is trying to take over humanity to use us in another conflict that we're unaware is going on. So, I mean, there's miscellaneous, bad guys here and there, but they tend to be in and out a lot of times. We're kind of hard on bad guys, the humans, because we don't fight fair, which they don't like very much. And that ends up being a theme, actually, too. We're kind of too good at what we do.
All right. So you got to put the booze down and ask your question, Doc.
No, I don't. Give us a sneak peek into how the sausage was made. Were there any cool scenes or ideas you left on the cutting room floor? Things you ended up using in the next book because, you were like, well, darn it, Chris, I liked this scene and I wrote it, so I'm going to find a way to put it in here.
There was a couple of subplots with some characters that I ended up dropping because the book was big enough and didn't need it. I planned to write this myself as multiple books. And when Chris came in and changed the scope of it, so I had to narrow it down to just about Cartwright's Cavaliers and Jim Cartwright. And when I was doing that, one of the plot lines ended up being with the character named Murdoch, who got his own book titled Dirty Deeds about 2 years later. Well, everyone had believed he was dead, but he actually survived his death in Cartwright's Cavaliers. He comes back. But when I introduced him, his first appearance was... let's just say it was in a whorehouse while he was doing his job. And it was pretty gritty, including like multiple killings and things like that. And I realized Chris didn't actually cut it. I did. I realized it was for the kind of theme we were going. It was a little more NC-17 than we'd wanted. So, but I liked the scene so much, I literally picked the scene up and dropped it into Murdoch and just changed the dates and everything around it. So what happened after he'd come back from the dead. And in that book, I mean, there's torture scenes, there's, gruesome killings, there's, houses of ill repute, I think, as you referred to them earlier. It's all in there. Because it's the old warrior trope, always beware of an old warrior in a job that usually they die young. Well, that's exactly Murdoch. He's almost 80 years old. He's been doing this for a long time. So you don't want to piss him off.
Fair enough. So can you tell us about the universe? I know a lot of times in these kind of series, the world is as much a character as any protagonist. So can you give us a hint of what to expect from this insanely expansive world that you've created?
That's the great thing about it is I've only created a literal sliver of this. There's been so many authors who have contributed. It quickly got busy enough that we had to set out that there were core authors. There were 6 of us, and we're the ones who are like the guardians of things that happen, so that none of the authors writing side books end up walking on the main storylines or controverting ourselves. We had to have a universe Bible and all of that.
How thick is the Bible?
Well, the Bible's a spreadsheet, and it's a Word document. The spreadsheet now has got 12 tabs and probably more than 2,000 entries on it. That's between worlds and races and things like that. It's absolutely huge. We can never share that.
Professionally works with Excel. I'm impressed.
We cannot share that document specifically. We have to exude to make the Bible, because that document has all kinds of details and long-term plots on it, what aliens are actually called, things like that. But the world itself, I mean, it's extensively like, you ever Galaxy Quest when he goes down and opens the ship and the one guy's like, what are you doing? We don't know if there's air. Most of the worlds we deal with are somewhat Earth normal. There's variations. Some are colder, some are hotter. There's, but generally speaking, most of the aliens breathe air and make noises in a way that we can understand. We have, in other tropes you're asking earlier, we have little translator pendants everyone can wear. They're not quite as good as the universal translators from Star Trek, but they're pretty good. And most life is carbon-based, like us. Although I quickly wrote an exception to that, known as the exotics. An exotic race is one that either isn't carbon-based like we are, it may not breathe oxygen like we do, or it has a biology or intelligence that is not understandable by humanity. So one of them is like the Islian. They look like Portuguese men of war. They live in gas giants, and they don't even think like we do. So they're really hard to deal with. That's our out to kind of get out there and get our full-on alien on. There's a few races like that too. Although the giant spider tartantulas, that might kind of count as well, because who would want to like go shake hands with a tarantula? There's just too damn many hands.
My favorite alien race of all time is like that. It's Dr. Blanket from AC Crispin, and it's a spore that looks like a blanket, and it's telepathic.
Alan Dean Foster's novel *Nor Crystal Tears* was one of my really influential ones, where he created an entire biology in like a silicon environment. So everything was completely it wasn't on our level at all. So even trying to write and understand it, it was really good writing. Foster is one of the best writers of our era. He doesn't get nearly as much credit as he should.
So Cartwright's Cavaliers is clearly part of the series.
He's already said that they're working on the ending 40, 50 books later.
Well, we're actually joking. One of our goals would be that the very last book would be book 100. And we're at 63 now, so maybe there's 2 more series to go. We'll have to see how it goes. But it'd be pretty cool if it's the 100th book, and that's the one where we complete all these storylines.
So we know that every literary universe has its own consistent rules of science, technology, and/or magic as applicable. So what sort of tech can we expect from these books?
It is a very, as I mentioned, pretty hard science fiction. We tend to stay away from some things. There is the only hard and undeniable truth is there is no anti-gravity.
Why?
And that's almost become a trope in itself because okay, here's the reason. I consider it lazy. It's on television and movies for a reason, because shooting in zero-G is a bitch. So it's easier just to say, oh, we got to reverse gravity or something like that. But that's extended in the writing. So many authors don't deal with it, and that's because it takes more work. You have to decide, well, are they on a gravity deck in a starship or at a space station, so there'd be some gravity? You have to remember that you can't just turn around and pick up something. You'd have to float over. I wanted that kind of a world. I wanted to have a little bit of just a feeling that it's different. The Expanse is like that. That's kind of why I like that sort of stuff. It's better stuff. It makes you help remember it, and it's one of our signatures. There is no artificial gravity in the Four Horsemen universe. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't a situation where you're walking around normally in spaceships, because most stations spin and most starships maintain low constant thrust. That would be your way to have some gravity. So our ships, a lot of them tend to be like buildings. Instead of ships where you walk around in the inside on the walls, and ours, it's like literally like a building on a building that lifts off into space. So you're walking on the floors under thrust instead of on the sides. I like it anyway. I think it's a little different. I know others do it, but almost everything else uses artificial gravity, so you don't. That's the only real thing that we don't do. Faster than light communications, we don't do that either. So
why? Because
we don't. Yeah, you want to send something like that, you send it through a Stargate, and then somebody would carry it like a message on a ship. So in that way, it's a little more like the Old West. You know, there's ships. This job is to carry messages, and they're kind of like the Pony Express or whatever. But nope, no faster than light communications, at least not yet.
So what? That sounds like a tease right there, Mark.
Read the newest book, Eye of the Storm, and you'll find the tease.
Okay, so but. Getting on with the interview itself today, instead of don't tempt me with your ADHD-ness. Which tech in your universe would you?
I'm reading the comments here. Just a second. What anime boobs? What am I missing? You guys started it. Don't look at me.
Ever watched anime?
Well, yeah.
Those things don't move naturally.
Yeah, some of them.
But so, audience, dear listener, if you would see some of the shenanigans that go on in the side chat in our StreamYard, sometimes it's everything we wanted to say, but we can't because we try to keep it somewhat PG-13.
Stuff like I'm a bad guest because I'll jump ahead and elucidate. So they're like, "Oops, skip that one. He already answered that." You know?
No. We have so many guests who do, and that's fine. That's why we have the chat window open. But getting on to the topic at hand.
Anime boobs?
One,
you broke her. So
of all the tech you invented in your use for daily use.
Mm-hmm. So I missed.
Which would you use?
It skipped out. I lost connection for just a second. What did you say?
Which tech would you have for daily use out of this universe?
Pin plants.
And how would you use it?
I'd use it to write. I'd use it to communicate. I'd use it to watch TV. There are cybernetic implants go in your brain. Most people have one or maybe two. Few people have more, and they link right in with your cerebellum and allow you to manipulate devices. They let you write letters. You can literally download stuff into your brain, a little like Johnny Mnemonic, but not quite that crazy. And I think we're probably less than 20 years from that. One of our writers, one of my friends, speaker, Rob Hampson, he's working on that technology right now. It's something that one day our kids will be born and be maybe while they're infants, that stuff will be inserted with them and they'll grow up using it just like it's in their hand. It'll be seamless for them. For us old farts, it'll probably be like, what are you doing to yourself? But my son, he's 23. And I said, would you do that? He said, in a heartbeat. And I'm like, I'd have to think about you digging around in my brain for a while, you know?
It's my brain. As much as I trust Rob Hampson, it's still my brain.
You only have one.
Yeah, exactly. And it is kind of essential.
The other one would be medical nanites. Those are pretty cool. So if you like, you know, keep one of those in your car like a fire extinguisher and you have a bad crash and you're going to bleed out, you just jam yourself with that and it'll save your life. Those things are pretty cool. I thought
that was what that would be great for Monday morning at Dragon Con. Just saying.
And there would be abuses of it too. I was just thinking about that.
That would probably be Monday morning of Dragon Con.
So your universe clearly has aliens in it. So how do you go about creating them? Do you let nature inspire you? Do you make them up out of whole cloth, something in between?
I'm accused of using over anthropomorphizing, but the reality is it's just an interpretation. So like people say the Zool are a popular race, and yes, they were named because of Ghostbusters, but that's because what happens when someone from Earth travels to another planet and sees an alien, they kind of get to name it for the first time if they want to, and their translators remember it and it gets shared to everybody. So they looked at him and thought, well, that kind of reminds me of that thing from Ghostbusters. But anyway, the race itself is described as being like dogs. But in most cases, all that is an analogy. Somebody looked at it and says, well, that kind of looks like a dog, but there's huge differences on them. All the other races are the same way. There's a race called the Minshaw, which look like praying mantises, but again, they look like it. You couldn't actually have an insect that size. There's rules of physics that you can't. So they're not really insects. You know, they're actually just partially exoskeleton creatures that are actually warm-blooded, just like us. And as far as creating them, I let anything I see influence me. I've created so many in this world, and others have created so many. Like my file right now has about 140 races that have been created in the course of writing books. But there's more because they don't tell me all of them. They're supposed to tell me when they make a new one and I put it in. It doesn't always happen. So we might have some overlap. And don't ask me what the weirdest one is because it probably involves boobs.
Okay, so clearly this interview is winding down. But before we wrap this up, was there
at least you hope it is.
Was there anything about Cartwright's Cavaliers that we didn't ask you that you want to tell us about before we move on? I
think it's an exceptionally fun story. And I think it's mostly safe for younger people. And especially if you're in an era that we're trying to be body positive, it really is a message for somebody that says you don't have to be Studley McMahon muffins, you know, or the chiseled superhero. That we all have within us to succeed and do things that are great if you feel that if you believe you're yourself. And that's what Jim comes down to. He's a character that believes in himself. Not always, but he does. Okay. And you mentioned in the pre-show something about a Kickstarter. So you want to tell us about that? Yes. We've run a Kickstarter about 2 years ago in the Horsemen universe when it was pretty young. We did challenge coins, kind of a thing that we thought we asked the fans what they wanted the most, and everybody loves challenge coins, again, because we have such a high level of military veterans in our organization. Challenge coins are huge. Now, they've gone way outside that now. You know, you've got police officers have them, fire departments have them, the city government has them, for crying out loud. So they become so popular that everybody likes to collect them. Well, we did that, went great, and then we realized, well, the next thing would be, as the universe expands, we need a role-playing game. That was about 2 years ago. We started planning and developing, and my best friend, who's also an author I mentioned before, John R. Osborne, euphemistically called Oz, that was his preference. He has been a game nut his whole life. Well, so have I, but he knows the nuts and bolts. So he is our lead designer. We started designing and working on this, and after 2 years of working and playtesting, we launched the Kickstarter for that on Saturday. So you have the ability now to go in and help us fund this operation. And it's going to be an extensive one. It's the biggest Kickstarter I've ever ran. We need $15,000 just for the base level, but we're already at 80%. So we're probably going to be there, I'm thinking, within 2 days. But we have lots of stretch goals: bigger book, more art, fancier book, cool things like a challenge coin just for this. And we got T-shirts and some really special stuff coming down in the next week or so, including the ability to create your own mercenary race, your ability to have your merc company written about in the book. And at the final level, you actually have the ability to star in a 4 Horsemen book. We will write you in a book. Me and Oz will write together. So you get to live out your fantasies of being a mercenary yourself.
And then killed. No.
And, well, no, not necessarily. You might get to live because people like it. We'll write another one.
Okay.
And you got we will, I believe, JR, right?
I'll get it from you after we're off air, and I will throw it in the show notes because this will be going out this week.
That sounds awesome.
How long is the Kickstarter running? Until what date?
It's 45 days, so you have plenty of time in case payday comes at the end of the month or something like that. And you know what? Even throw a buck in for now because other stuff comes up. You may change your mind. And $15 gets you the ebook and all of the art we're going to use. And for $25, you get a copy of the hardcover book. And there's all kinds of other things you can do. It's in Savage World, so it's a great system. I haven't played many games in years, and I was able to pick this up in hours. With the last playtest we ran at Fantasy, we had 8 players there who bid in an auction to be in it for charity, and they had a great time. We had many Besquith were killed, and dice were thrown, and pizza was eaten. It was an awesome time. It's a fun game system.
Okay, and then the other reason we had you here in the time that we did, because we've been trying to bounce back and forth between fantasy and sci-fi, and if you might have noticed, we're doing a sort of a blitz of military sci-fi, is because there's a story bundle out, which this story is included in, over on storybundle.com/sci-fi, where for anything you pay, you can get 4 books for anything you want to, but if you hit the bonus of $15, you unlock a total of 19 books to include this novel, the complete box set of short story content anthologies by Kevin J. Anderson, a box set of Shadow Warriors by Nathan B. Dodge, and a bunch of others. The link will be in the show notes.
That's a lot of cool.
So it's one of those things where the most of the money goes to the authors this time instead of some of the publisher houses like Amazon or Barnes & Noble, and a percentage of the profit and of yours, you get to pick what percentage, goes to charities. And
like
the
as well as for the reader, it comes in typically DRM free, so you can download it on however many devices you need to, because I have been doing story bundles for so long. I have had to replace not 1, but 2 ebook readers during the time in which I've done story bundles. I've been doing story bundles since 2014 or 13. Mm-hmm. So that's almost 10 years, and I have like 20 something story bundles.
But how do you beat less than $1 a book? That's a pretty good deal, you know?
Yeah. And this story, this charity in question is the Challenger Center. So it's a space themed organization that helps sort of promote awareness and
I see what you did there.
So it's definitely worth doing. Check it out if it's your thing. If not, buy it for your friend and gift the books. So as we wrap this up, because Cisca's going to fall asleep any second now, Mark, how can listeners and viewers find you?
Simplest ways, you can go to Facebook. I'm usually there if I'm not banned. You can just search for Mark Wandrey, author. I'm there. He's going to put the links up for that also. I'm on Twitter also as Mark. A great thing about having a name like this is, you know, if bookstores were really big still, I'd be down on the floor. But now I'm unique, so I'm easy to find. You just can go to Amazon, type in Mark Wandrey,
really big.
And there I am. I'm all over the place. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and I'm all under Mark Wandrey. And my website is www.worldmaker, all one word, .us. And we have merchandise and all kinds of cool stuff there.
And you'll get to find us. I'm going to leave that cover up a little bit so you can glory at that artwork before we wrap this up. You can find us on our website at anchor.fm/blasters, tack and tack blades. Anchor.fm/blasters, tack and tack blades. We're on Twitter at SF_fantasy_show, Sierra Foxtrot _fantasy_show. You can email us at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. We even answer it sometimes, we promise. We have a Facebook group at facebook.com/Blasters and Blades Podcast. You can support the show on the aforementioned anchor.fm/Blasters, Tack and Tack Blades, or at a monthly fee of $5, $10, or $15, or you can support us on a one-time donation at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. And be sure to put in the comments section that it is for the podcast, and we will make sure we keep Nick Garber and Doc Cisca intoxicated so they are the life of the party while I'm the sober bus driver. All right.
Thank you for spending some of your what?
I was going to say bring it home before you fall asleep.
I'm not asleep. I did that at work today by accident. We're good. Thank you for spending some of your precious time with us for the overworked Nick Garber, J.R. Handley, the long-suffering one. I am Cisca. This was the Blasters and Blade podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, all things that go boom, and of course, Dragon Con and pineapple on pizza and Pern is sci-fi. Have a nice night.
We're going to end on lies, a house of lies.